Who doesn't love fan theories? They're a perfect way to rationalize plot holes or ponder unanswered questions that movies leave. Dark fan theories based on Disney are some of the most popular. Disney presents itself as so innocent, and that just makes our imaginations run wild and wonder what dark secrets may lie beneath the fun surface that is Disney. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of our favorites. Hold on now, before we get started, subscribe to our channel. You'll be joining the notification squad and get frequent updates on brand new content. And one more thing, why not take a part in our emoji quiz? Can you guess what film these emojis are showing off? Wait to the end to find out.
Oh no.
Frozen. Frozen probably has the most long-winded fan theory on this list, so we're gonna give it to you straight. Some Disney fans believe that Tangled and Frozen are pretty tightly linked. Director Jennifer Lee confirmed that when Elsa's parents' ship was capsized, they were heading to a wedding. Seeing as Rapunzel and Eugene are seen arriving at Elsa's coronation and considering they're from Germany, we can only assume that they were specifically invited. This has led fans to believe that Elsa's parents, the king and queen, died whilst on a voyage to Rapunzel's wedding. The theory goes a little further though, as if they'd capsized halfway to Germany from Scandinavia, they would be right around Atlantica, the home of Ariel and King Triton. So it could even be possible that the shipwreck scene of the Little Mermaid could be all that's left of Elsa's parents. While it's certainly far-fetched, seeing as the Little Mermaid was produced long before Frozen was even thought of, retcons do happen. Disney hasn't confirmed whether their animated classics are canon to each other, and they likely never will. This doesn't stop fans from linking the movies together, something we'll talk about more a little bit later.
Princess Jasmine, you're very...
Wonderful, magnificent, glorious, punctual.
Punctual.
Sorry.
Aladdin. A great deal of the genie's dialogue in Aladdin came from ad-libs of the great comedian Robin Williams. Robin's tendency to go off on strange tangents and make strange references informed a lot of the genie's bizarre and seemingly impossible pop culture references. The first line spoken by the genie is iconic. 10,000 years will give you such a crick in the neck. Yet, despite of being locked away for 10,000 years and being awoken in what is seemingly the pre-Crusades Middle East. So how on earth does he know all of these pop culture references? Well, barring the possibility that the genie is simply omniscient, we can only assume that Aladdin takes place 10,000 years in the future. One popular theory is that Agrabah is actually a nation post-apocalypse. It's one of the only ways to explain the genie's frequent pop culture references and the lack of technology. Even if Agrabah simply never caught up with the rest of the world in terms of technology, the movie would still have to take place far in the future for the genie to know all of these references. But then again, the genie is literally magic, so who knows?
I'll just poison him with this. Take it, Kronk. Feel the power.
Oh, I could feel it.
The Emperor's New Groove. What started as a brief, dark joke in The Emperor's New Groove triggered a minor conspiracy theory amongst Disney fans. Kuzco is alone in the jungle and visibly afraid. There are alligators, jaguars, and other wild animals that could potentially eat him. To top it all off, a small fly buzzes past him and gets stuck in a spider's web. He frantically screams for someone to help him before the spider emerges and eats him, saying it's too late. Not only is it a reference to Jeff Goldblum's pleas to help him in the 80s horror film The Fly, but it's also even darker than it first appears. While talking animals in Disney films aren't uncommon, the only other animal to talk in The Emperor's New Groove was the squirrel, who communicated solely in squirrel speak. Animals that were originally humans, like Kuzco, however, retained their ability to speak even after Yzma's mad science transformed them. The theory is that both the fly and spider were originally humans and were transformed into arthropods by Yzma. If that's true, then it means we didn't so much witness the cruelty of nature and more a premeditated murder. While it's not the first murder to happen in a Disney film, it definitely is the most disturbing one to think about.
Come on, Peach.
Oh.
Now what?
Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is a movie that's really aimed at parents. While the film is entertaining and fun for kids, the real message isn't about being a good kid, but about being a good father. The movie puts so much time into showing different approaches to fatherhood that the idea that none of the movie ever happened is a little unsettling, which is probably why this fan theory took off. When Marlin loses his wife and all but one of their eggs, we immediately understand why Marlin is so overprotective of Nemo. Some fans theorize, however, that Nemo never survived and the movie is a metaphor for Marlin dealing with his grief after the Barracuda attack, as well as the fact that Nemo literally translates from Latin as nothing, hinting on him being a figment of his imagination. The 5 stages of grief are mapped out in the movie. He goes through denial, trying to stop Nemo going to school, anger at Nemo when he swims too far away. His journey across the ocean can be seen as bargaining to try to get Nemo back, depression upon seeing Nemo flushed away, and finally he accepts to let go of his hard past. While we doubt that this was ever intended by Disney or Pixar, it's interesting how a character defined by his grief goes through the 5 stages on his journey to save his son.
Good news is, I found your hat, Woody.
My hat! Oh, Slink, thank you. Where'd you find it?
Well, that's the bad news.
Toy Story 2. We're not completely sure if this theory is scary or strangely heartwarming. While it's never been outright stated, fans paid attention to Toy Story 2 when it strongly implies that Andy's mother is the original owner of Jessie. We note from the amount of time Jessie has spent abandoned that Jessie is considerably older than Woody, and she has better knowledge of the toy's own franchise history than Woody ever has. We also know that the young girl that abandoned her frequently wore a hat identical to Jessie's. As a matter of fact, the hat is identical to the one that Andy wears in the first Toy Story movie, with the imprint of where the white band once was. It seems a little strange that if Andy had a cowboy hat, that he would have tried to get one as much like Woody's as possible. So why would he have Jessie's hat? The question is never really answered. Fans have guessed, however, that the hat may have been passed down to Andy by his mother. If this theory is true, it means not only was Jessie tragically abandoned by Andy's mom, but she also, against all odds, managed to find her way back home, albeit in a more unconventional way.
You were this close to losing your...
Incredibles. While not outright terrifying, writer Steve Damrell certainly had an uncomfortable thought about The Incredibles. While watching the Pixar movie, he noticed many unusual similarities to the work of Ayn Rand, in particular Atlas Shrugged, the novel that outlined her objectivist philosophy. It's not as apparently horrific, but the idea of a kid's movie having a strong political philosophy backing it is a little scary. Outside of the main visual cue of Mr. Incredible on one knee holding the orb-shaped robot over his shoulders, a symbol uncannily similar to the popular image of Atlas carrying the world, the movie also seems to reinterpret some of the verbiage of Ayn Rand. While there are many parallels, including the heroes being berated with lawsuits despite their good deeds to society, the most apparent is when Dash is denied the opportunity to race with kids in his school. His parents feel that it's unfair because he would excel at it thanks to his superpower. Dash points out that he should be allowed to race because he is special. She responds with, "Everyone is special." Dash is sad and says, "Then no one is." The villain syndrome also echoes this idea. The idea of choosing norms over exceptionalism and the hatred of success are big elements of Rand's philosophy. Alternatively, the movie could be viewed as a criticism of those ideas, not unlike BioShock, but it's still strange that these themes made it into a kid's film either way.
Jeez, it's a lion! Run, Pumbaa, move it! Hey!
The Lion King. Who remembers Mufasa? The lion with the voice so awesome that when the time came to remake the movie, Disney got James Earl Jones to play him all over again. Well, some fans believe that Mufasa not only became a spirit like we saw in the movie, but actively controlled the weather. After Mufasa dies and Scar takes over Pride Rock, it becomes rather apparent that he's a bad leader. After all, he's so bad that he's somehow caused a drought, something that should not be physically possible. However, on Earth, could a lion rule so badly that it never rains? Well, when Mufasa appears to a lonely and dejected Simba, he appears shaped by clouds. Some fans have taken this to mean less that he is one of the many kings watching over Pride Rock, but that he is literally a water god now. After all, as soon as Scar is defeated by Simba, it rains for the first time. Simba climbs to the top of Pride Rock, soaking wet, and roars triumphantly. While the water is intended to symbolize new, good times for Pride Rock, some fans think that it was Mufasa turning the tap on now that Scar is gone. Snow White. Speaking of characters having hidden identities, one of the darkest theories surrounding Snow White is the thought that Prince Charming isn't actually the one to rescue her, but is instead the personification of death. The first time Snow White sees the prince, she runs away in fear of him. I'm sure most of us can attest that that's not a normal reaction to seeing a new person. The Redditor who developed the theory believed that it could be taken as a metaphor representing her nearly drowning in the well, as Snow White was hanging over the well just before the prince appeared. The second time they meet is the famous scene in which Prince Charming kisses Snow White and saves her life, which isn't entirely logical either, unless of course it symbolizes the kiss of death. The prince doesn't sweep her away and take her to a faraway kingdom. He is the embodiment of death, who kisses her, sweeps her away, and takes her to the underworld. After all, he only appears at what would have been Snow White's funeral. It's an idea that can be easily unsettling, but even if this theory were true, it doesn't necessarily mean that Prince Charming is the bad guy in the situation. He could just simply be a nice, angelic metaphor for crossing over with no ill will towards Snow White whatsoever. After all, he's not the one that poisoned her.
And I got friends on the other side.
He's got friends on the other side.
The Princess and the Frog. No Disney villain has quite as much style and sophistication as Dr. Facilier, the Shadow Man. It's easy to explain away the majority of the Shadow Man's strangely specific knowledge in the movie as simply being voodoo magic, but there is another fan theory that was first pitched on DeviantArt by user Scrooge MacDuck. It's possible that Dr. Facilier is actually Tiana's father. After all, he's aware of Tiana's existence and starts causing trouble for her despite seemingly never meeting her before. He not only knows her name, but he also knows her dream to own her own restaurant. While it's possible that it's just an extension of his magic powers and that he reads her the same way he did Prince Naveen, it's also possible that his knowledge comes from a pre-existing relationship. While Tiana believes that her father died at war, it's entirely possible that he made a deal with his friends on the other side to give him a second chance at life. He was brought back, albeit as a very different man. From there, his newfound power corrupted him. It's not a particularly nice thought to think that the father who seemed so loving and caring in flashbacks could become the nefarious Dr. Facilier. We like the idea though. Fantasia and the Disney Universe. Earlier in the video, we talked about how some Disney fans like to think that every Disney movie exists in the same world. While we're not going to say how plausible it is, we're going to add a little to the theory. If the Disney world is indeed a thing, then we can't help but notice that all the bad guys seem to be particularly adept with magic. Where do all these evil villains draw upon their power from? Well, we have an idea. Chernobog, the great demon from Slavic mythology that first appears in the night on Bald Mountain. Walt Disney himself described Chernobog as pure evil, who would fuel the wicked intent of those around him. So could it be that all the other Disney villains gained their magical powers from the great and terrible Chernobog? He could potentially even control the friends on the other side that gave Dr. Facilier his powers. Maybe the only reason Maleficent can take the form of a dragon is thanks to him. In Slavic folklore, Chernobog is the god of all that is bad. If all the Disney movies take place in the same universe, and Fantasia is included in that, then it stands to reason that Chernobog would keep that role. He is great, powerful, truly terrifying, and just maybe responsible for every bad thing that happens in the Disney world.
Up. 2009's Up is such a heartwarming movie. Its three main characters are two cranky old men and a nervous little kid, which is so unlike most movies these days, but it's wonderful. However, it doesn't seem so wonderful if one of those characters is actually dead, does it? Yeah, we're getting off to a gloomy start here, because this theory suggests that Up's Carl Fredricksen is actually deceased, having passed away in his sleep after he was told he'd be forced to live in a retirement home. It actually makes a lot of sense, too. It suggests that the movie is Carl's journey through the afterlife, with young Russell being his guardian angel, one who is attempting to earn his wings by guiding Carl through his transition. Furthermore, Russell taking the form of a child was to fulfill Carl and Ellie's desire to have children. The house in the movie is symbolic of Carl's attachment to the physical world, and Paradise Falls is Carl's idea of heaven. Interesting, right? But you haven't heard anything yet.
I don't think so. Not right now. You're getting your wishes, so sit down!
Aladdin. So, Aladdin, you're probably thinking it's set centuries in the past, right? Well, yeah, it probably is, but there's a pretty damn dark and disturbing theory that suggests it might not be. The 1992 movie, of course, features the Genie of the Lamp, voiced so wonderfully by the late, great Robin Williams, and he makes reference to a number of modern movies and celebrities. Now, given that he was supposed to have been trapped in that lamp for thousands of years, and given the supposed time setting of the story regardless of that, that shouldn't be possible. I mean, how would he know of those references? Well, the theory we mentioned suggests that Aladdin is actually set thousands of years in the future, in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, after a world-ending disaster that set mankind back by millennia. Nice, huh? WALL-E. What a nice, friendly, harmless little robot WALL-E was. The star of the 2008 movie wouldn't hurt a fly, and the only evil robot to come out of by and large was Otto, right? Well, we'd like to think so, but one extremely dark theory actually suggests that WALL-E is responsible for the entire destruction of Earth. Yikes. We saw him happily cannibalizing parts from another model he found, adding it to his delightful collection of spare parts. But he also has a trailer full of parts. Just how many models did he tear to pieces? Definitely a lot more than he required to run. These were trophies from his previous kills. Bearing in mind WALL-E had been around for approximately 700 years, that 700-year-long killing spree gradually wiped out the rest of the recycling robots. It explains why the planet looked like a total dump and why he's the only robot around. He literally destroyed Earth. Wreck-It Ralph. This is less of a theory and more something that fans have deduced actually happened, but it's not something you immediately think of, and it definitely puts a much darker edge on one aspect of 2012's Wreck-It Ralph. One of the movie's main characters, Sergeant Tamora Jean Calhoun, has a tragic backstory, in that she watched her husband-to-be get eaten by a cybug just seconds before they were due to marry, then killed the cybug in question. That's bad enough, but fans have pointed out that cybugs assimilate their victims and become them, meaning Calhoun would have had to kill a murderous insectoid version of the man she loved. No wonder she was sometimes crabby. The Little Mermaid. There's a neat theory that suggests Disney's The Little Mermaid, Frozen, Tangled, and Tarzan are all set within the same universe. We won't go into why here, that's not the dark part of the century, but just believe us when we say it's true. The dark part comes because of what that means for 1989's The Little Mermaid in particular. The aforementioned theory suggests that the parents of Frozen's Elsa and Anna died at sea on the way to Rapunzel and Flynn's wedding, which would place their watery graves near Denmark. That means the wreck from which Ariel scourges human artifacts to satisfy her weird obsession is Elsa and Anna's parents' ship, and Ariel was grave robbing from and desecrating the decaying corpses of a nice couple who perished en route to a wedding. Frozen. Speaking of Frozen, the 2013 movie was and remains an incredibly popular movie. In fact, it's the highest grossing animated movie of all time. Everybody loved it, especially children, but we're not sure the kids would be so fond of it if they believed a pretty dark theory that is doing the rounds about it. The heroic Kristoff seemed like a nice guy, right? Well, this theory suggests that the guy's clothes point to reindeer murder. The indigenous Sami people are known for wearing reindeer hide, and the likelihood is that the ice harvesters killed a reindeer and gave its pelt to Kristoff to keep warm. Here's where it gets really dark. This theory explains why Sven the reindeer is so attached to Kristoff. The guy is wearing what remains of his dead mother. Peter Pan. 1953's Peter Pan really is a quintessential Disney classic. In the movie, the titular boy has a mischievous shadow with which he has a rather fun and playful relationship. But one dark theory suggests that there might be a sinister tale behind the shadow, and that it's actually a lot to do with dark magic. The theory is that Peter's shadow is a window into hell, and an extension of himself. Notice how it was able to touch and move things? For reference, Dr. Facilier's shadow in another Disney movie, The Princess and the Frog, could do the same thing, and he ended up being dragged to hell after making a deal with the devil. Could Peter have made a similar deal? It seems unlikely, but when you consider that it might have been in exchange for his eternal life, it starts to make sense. Let's just hope Peter keeps his side of whatever bargain he made with Satan. Partysaurus Rex. Although it's not a full feature picture, 2012's Partysaurus Rex, a spin-off from the Toy Story movies, is indeed a short film, so we feel happy to include it here. The theory about it, however, is more based on the Monsters, Inc. movies, and it suggests that poor Sully has suffered a terrible fate. Just look at the toilet seat cover in Partysaurus Rex. Isn't that Sully? This revelation made the internet go crazy, after Reddit user Ranting Randall claimed to recall a quote from the original Monsters, Inc. movie, in which Randall Boggs said, "I heard humans skin monsters and make toilet covers out of their fur." We, like many others, have gone hunting for the line, but we couldn't actually find it, and people are now claiming it doesn't actually exist. Regardless, that toilet seat cover looks very suspicious, and definitely suggests that Monsters, Inc.'s star character is dead. Can you find the related quote? If so, please message us with the appropriate time code from the movie. Seriously, we really need to know. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. We're going back a long way now, pre-World War II in fact, to 1937 and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Given just how creepy this theory is, there's absolutely no way we could have left it out. You know how the prince in the movie is, well, the quintessential Prince Charming? Well, what if he wasn't? What if he was actually death itself? The theory suggests that the kiss he gave Snow White to revive her actually sent her to the afterlife. It stems largely from American Horror Story Asylum, in which the Angel of Death's method for sending people to the other side was to kiss them and suck the life out of them. Snow White saying her goodbye to the dwarves looked like she was being led off to a fairy tale ending, but what if she was waving goodbye to them for all eternity? Creepy, right? Moreover, the prince has a white horse. Revelation 6:8 states, "I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death." The Incredibles. You probably remember the no capes scene from 2004's The Incredibles, when Edna Mode tells Mr. Incredible about all the past superheroes who died because their capes got stuck in things like vortexes and missiles. And you probably remember Stratogale getting sucked into a plane engine by her cape. Well, there's a very dark side to all of that. Not only was Stratogale a mere school kid, making her death all the more tragic, the likelihood is that her death caused the plane crash, killing hundreds of civilian passengers. Remember how the movie tells of superheroes going into hiding because of the collateral damage they caused? That all makes sense now, right? Furthermore, Edna designed Stratogale's suit, so she probably blames herself. A dark theory suggests that she did the same for the evil syndrome, and purposely included a cape in his ensemble in order to potentially get him killed as a way of making amends.
That was totally wicked!
Thanks for watching our video about 10 Disney theories that turn into the darkest movies ever. What other theories have you heard that make Disney movies seem a lot darker than they do on the surface? And the answer to the movie emoji is... Did you get the right answer? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Screen Rant for more fun videos like this one.